Oh, I can't read that at all. This thing.
It's okay. I'm gonna make it bigger. I'm gonna cut this out. Well, that's all I got. So I'll do it.
I don't work.
All right.
Right?
Yep. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Relocation Rundown. I'm Aaron,
Geoff.
and we are the Aaron and Geoff team at Compass, your Bronx residential real estate experts.
We are so excited. Oh, I cut you off. We are so excited to have Lindsay with us from Austin, Texas. Lindsay, thanks so much for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Before we jump right in, why don't you give our many listeners a little brief intro on who you are and what you do?
My name is Lindsay Neuren. I am a real estate agent in Austin, Texas. I'm a third generation Austinite, so kind of a unicorn in Austin, Texas. And I love helping people relocate to my beautiful hometown.
That's awesome. Have you always lived in Austin, or I know you've lived in other places, right?
Yeah, so I grew up in Austin. I left at 18 years old thinking I would never come back. To be honest with you, it was a very different city, right? It was like 300,000 people. It's always been a really fun, artsy, cool city, but it was like basically a college town, a big college town. And so I left for bigger and better things. So I went to college in Atlanta, and then I moved to New York for almost a decade. And that's where I met my husband, and we were there for a long time. And then we decided to have kids, and we were sort of debating about basically New York or Austin, where our families were. And Austin, over the course of that 15-year period that I was gone, actually, went through a huge transformation. And so my husband being in tech, I wanted to make the transition to real estate. So Austin, my family is still in Austin. So Austin won out weather-wise, quality of life-wise. I could talk about sort of why we did that. But we get to visit New York a lot because my husband's family lives up there. So all over the tri-state area.
And I assume you left a lot of friends behind as well.
Yeah, a lot of friends. But most of my friends, I think, were living in the city at the time. And a lot of them are now in the suburbs of New York. So kind of all over the tri-state area. And I think when we were thinking about moving to Austin, whether we were going to do New York, we couldn't afford to live in the city. So we were like, we're going to have to live in the suburbs. We, thought a lot about quality of life and sort of what we wanted for our life. And Austin is pretty easy. It's much smaller. It's only about 1 million people. I think people think it's a lot bigger than it is, but it's really small. Dallas and Houston are huge, massive cities. Austin's pretty small. And so we thought it would be a good opportunity to make a move, both logistically and, make some career changes.
Did you say before that Austin was only 300,000 people, and now
when I
it's
was a kid? Yes, when I was a kid, it was
now it's almost a million.
Well, it's a little bit more than 1 million. It's about 1.5 million, including the surrounding suburbs. But
That's
it's still it's grown so much, and that really has been as a result of the tech boom that's happened in Austin. So in the 90s, Dell Computers was established here, IBM. So it's gone through this huge tech transformation. Now we have a Google office, Amazon office. We have a huge Apple headquarters here. We have Tesla. We have so many companies that have moved here, and we're kind of the Silicon Valley 2.0 at this point. So we get a lot of clients who will get an offer from one of those tech companies, and the tech companies will tell them, you either need to be in, let's just say the Bay Area office or the Austin office, and you get to pick. And so we get a lot of people that move here because they get an offer from one of those companies, and they get to move, and it's higher quality of life, it's less expensive than the Bay Area or Seattle for Amazon. So we get a lot of people that move here for that, for that point. And also they're kind of in that phase of their life where they're having kids. So we get a lot of people that are moving for that purpose as well. We have very strong school districts.
Where are you putting all these extra people?
Yeah.
Where's the development happening?
Yeah. Well, we were the hottest market in the country for 10 years, from basically, after the recoveries, I would say 2012 to 2022. And then we've actually stabilized since 2022. So we are opposite of what's going on in the Northeast. We actually have inventory now. I will say, Austin is unique in the sense that some of the strongest schools are 10, 15 minutes from downtown Austin. And so those areas that are 20 minutes from downtown Austin with strong schools, those are low inventory areas that are kind of harder to get into. But obviously the surrounding suburbs are more affordable, strong schools as well, but you're going to be more 30 to 45 minutes from downtown. So we get a lot of clients that are moving here from major cities and they don't want to live deep in the suburbs. They want that city life, but also the suburban life at the same time. And you can kind of get both of that here.
How many years are you back in Austin from New York now?
10 years. So we moved back in 2015, very early 2015.
What kind of considerations did you guys make before deciding where in Austin to move and like plan?
So, born and raised here, I kind of knew where I wanted to live. I grew up in Northwest Austin. So I wanted to be, not on top of my parents, but I wanted to be close to where my parents were, close enough. And I'm Jewish. We've talked about this. And there is a small but very tight Jewish community in Northwest Austin. We have this incredible JCC because Michael Dell back in the 90s bought 25 acres in Northwest Austin, very close to where I grew up, and donated the land back to the Jewish community. And so now we have this incredible Jewish community center, which is very rare for how small our community is. And so for me, it was sort of a no-brainer. I wanted my kids to go to the preschool there. I wanted to spend time there. So we decided to buy in Northwest Austin. Northwest Hills is kind of the area. And it's probably about 6 or 7 minutes from my parents.
How have you seen pricing shift over the last decade? I mean, it was one of the hottest markets. I think even during COVID, we were hearing people in New York, especially, relocating down to Austin.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that, like you said, the Jewish community, I think there's a thriving LGBT community. It seems to be a blue bubble in a weird landscape. So, how have you seen it shift? And are you seeing people coming to the area because of those demographics?
Absolutely. I mean, Austin's always been sort of like a hippie haven, right? My parents went to UT in the 60s. It was very hippies. And it's always been super progressive. It's always been a blue dot in, sea of red. And so as a native Austinite, I'm sort of used to that. And I go maybe drive an hour outside of Austin and I'm a deer in headlights because I grew up in this very progressive city. So I'm probably more comfortable in New York City than I am like in the middle of nowhere, Texas. So it is appealing. It's very, it's very art, film, food focused. So it does attract people that want to have a lot of diversity when it comes to all those things and have access to art and music and film and great food. Also very LGBTQ friendly, pretty diverse, not as diverse as New York City. I do miss that a lot, but pretty diverse. And I think obviously the job market here is very, very strong. So we have people a lot of our clients are in the tech field or in the financial tech field, and they move to Austin because of the job opportunities.
What's the kind of housing stock that you guys have? Like here we have like some kind of unique stuff like condos and co-ops. Like what's going on in Austin?
The majority of the homes in Austin are single family, which is appealing because when people move to Austin, they're like, I want to get a dog. Like they're moving from LA and San Francisco and New York and Chicago and they're living in condos, right? And they don't have space and they don't have yards. So the reason they're moving to Austin, in my opinion, is, they've already kind of done that. And now they're like more focused on getting more space and maybe getting a dog and getting a yard and things like that, which you can do. So the vast majority of our inventory is single family. We have a small condo market downtown that's sort of emerged over the last 20 years. 20 years ago, no one lived downtown. It was just sort of the University of Texas and the state capitol and things like that, and office buildings. But now there's all these high rises. And so that is an emerging market in Austin. But the majority of it are these surrounding neighborhoods that are single family homes. And we do have some density, some new construction going on where they're splitting up lots and doing like 2 houses on one lot, 3 houses on one lot. But they live like single family. You just have less yard space, but you still have a yard. So most of our clients are looking for 2 or 3 bedrooms, yard, garage, things like that. And they can get that in Austin.
We, I think, not every one of these podcasts we talk to people in a city that we've been to. We've actually been to Austin and we really enjoyed it. It had really a lot of fun with the live music scene. We stayed downtown in that historic Driscoll Hotel. I mean, it was a really fun city to explore. And we were only there for a few days. What would you recommend to somebody who's maybe coming from New York City thinking, I'm tired of the expense and the hustle and bustle and I want to make a relocation? What are the things that you would call out to them as important to consider before they do that?
Yeah, I mean, so, I think we provide the fun of a city, right? We've got downtown and we've got the music scene and the art scene and the food scene. But the thing I love about it and the thing to consider is like, I feel like I get, we have a yard. We're 15 minutes from downtown Austin. We have a nice yard. We have a nice house. We have space. We have a dog. We have the quiet when we want the quiet. And then we can go to the east side or downtown and go out and go to dinner. And so I think it's like a great city for someone who still wants like the city life, even when they have kids, right? They don't want to fully transition to suburban life, but they still want to have like, more space and more quiet, like a slower pace of life, right? And so I would say if you're coming to Austin, staying downtown is great. I would start to explore some of the other neighborhoods that are within like a 10, 15 minute, because most of the time when people move here, they might, especially if they're looking for more space, they're not going to live downtown. And so you can go to like, there's really cool areas down South Congress area. I'm sure y'all went down there. There's some great neighborhoods there that provide a lot of walkability. We get a lot of clients that are moving from, let's say, Brooklyn, and they do want some walkability. And so there's a couple neighborhoods that you can actually get some walkability, and there's good schools, and you're in the city, but you get a yard and you have some space. So that does exist here. It's just not New York City walkability.
I always like to ask people in other markets, like, what's the kind of like secondary vacation market for Austin? Like, here in the city, we have the Hamptons, we have the Jersey Shore, we have the Catskills. Like, where do people go when they want to leave Austin, but not go too far? If that makes sense.
The Texas Hill Country is like sort of where everyone goes.
Where is that?
Yeah. So if you look at Austin, the topography of Austin really confuses people because they come to Texas and, Dallas and Houston are very flat, right? There's no hills. You go to Austin and you go west, and I think you probably saw a little bit of it downtown. You can see the hills, but like that's the start of the Texas Hill Country. If you go to West Austin, which is kind of where I live, you'll start to see these these cliffs. You're seeing like these rolling hills. It's beautiful. And so West Austin is very, very desirable. And it's the start of the Texas Hill Country. So if you keep going, you're going to there's a few lakes. And so people love going. There's a bunch of resorts and places where you can stay on the lake and go on boats. You keep going, you're going to get to Fredericksburg, which is like our wine country. And so in Wimberley, there's a couple of really, really charming towns where there's a bunch of really, really great breweries, vineyards, places to stay if you just want to do like a weekend trip away. So there's a lot of people that will have a second home there or a second home on Lake Travis.
Is there a favorite restaurant or scene in Austin that you love that you would say, oh my God, you're coming to Austin, you absolutely have to check out place?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I have a whole spreadsheet. I mean, I think our food truck scene is really unique because I think our food is really, really good, but I also think it's very approachable. So you don't have to go to like a really expensive restaurant in Austin to get amazing food. And so go check out like one of the food truck parks. There's a bunch of them. Obviously, you got to get really good Tex-Mex and Mexican food, as well as barbecue. That's like a must. But we have such a diverse beyond that. We have so much good food. People are pretty shocked that we have a really great like sushi scene here. People are surprised. We've got just so much good food. I would say my favorite place to tell people to go is just because I like the idea that you don't have to make a reservation and it's really good. It's a place called Loro. It's South Congress. And you can just show up and order food. And it's basically Aaron Franklin, who's like the famous Franklin barbecue, the tourist place where everyone stands in line, which I've never done, by the way. As someone who's lived here, I've never stood in line, but it's a whole thing. You can actually order it online 2 months in advance. So you don't have to stand in line. But I would go to Loro because Loro has the Franklin's brisket and you don't have to stand in line. It's a barbecue Asian fusion restaurant. It's really good.
Sounds really good. Now I'm hungry.
How many people do you really work with that relocate to Austin? Like, how often are people making
a lot? I mean, I would say at least 40% of my clients are relocating, maybe closer to 50%. I have a client coming in town next week. We're going to be touring homes, a lot from the West Coast, a lot from Seattle. We do get a little bit of like Chicago. We do get a little New York, Florida, right? But a lot from the West Coast. And most of it's driven by new jobs that they're getting. Other than that, sometimes it's just a quality of life aspect where they might be living somewhere and they can relocate here for better weather or cheaper quality of life, cheaper homes, things like that. So we do get a lot of people from like LA and San Francisco and San Diego. You can get more for your money here. And we get a lot of young families that are relocating here to get more space.
If you didn't live in Austin, but you had to stay in Texas, where would you live and why?
That is such a hard question because I feel like Austin is way better than these other cities. I'd probably live in the Heights in Houston. It's like a really cool, if you've ever been to that neighborhood in Houston, it's a really cool neighborhood. It's very art, it's like their art district. It's kind of Montrose / the Heights. It's got like all these really cool craftsman kind of older homes. It's got really good walkability in that area. So I would say that area of Houston, but I still think Austin is way better. I like the topography of Austin. You know, Austin is like really beautiful and it's a very outdoorsy city. And I like seeing the green hills and the trees and the lakes. And so we're kind of spoiled from a topography and, just perspective.
Is there anything that if you're coming to Austin or, Texas in general to do a real estate transaction to buy, that you need to know? Like, for example, in New York, we are an attorney state, and people are often surprised when we say you have to have an attorney in order to do a transaction, right? It's one of those kind of unique New York things. We've talked to agents in other markets where they say at the offer stage, you have to do some kind of an escrow deposit. And during your inspection phase, you may walk through the deal, but you may lose that deposit, right? There are all kinds of intricacies in every market. So what's unique about Texas and Austin?
So we are not an attorney, right? So we do not use attorneys. So real estate agents, we are filling out like promulgated forms. You can use an attorney if you want to, but it's pretty rare. It's really on super, super high end luxury deals only. I would say we similar to that. You put a small deposit down, usually $200 to $1,000 on the high end for what's called an option fee, which you're paying someone to take the house off the market to do an inspection, right? So during that time frame, no one else can bid on it, right? It's your house to walk away from. So we do have that, which I actually really like because I always tell my clients, sometimes it's nerve-wracking to put in an offer. And I say, listen, if we get this accepted, you still have a week where you can walk away for any reason. You can just change your mind. You can literally find another house, or you can just say, this isn't the right one for us. And so I always tell people it's nice to say, you've got like a week to really make your decision. You don't have to make it right now.
Does the seller have that same freedom and say, I don't want to move forward with this deal?
Once it's executed, the seller cannot terminate the contract. So it's really, the Texas contract is very buyer friendly. So it has a lot of outs for the buyer and almost no outs for the seller. So it very much favors the buyer, which is great.
That is great for somebody relocating. But I guess, how do you work with sellers to protect them on the other side of it?
Yeah, I mean, sellers obviously have some advantages, right? But the contingencies are mostly focused to protect the buyer, right? They've got an appraisal contingency and a financing contingency. Obviously, in a competitive market, I'm working with the seller to try to get as many of those contingencies removed. In today's market, we are, depending on the area, we're in a buyer's market here. And so a lot of those contingencies are staying in place right now. During COVID, a lot of people were waiving the appraisal, waiving the financing. It was really advantageous for sellers at that point. So it's pretty standard, though, to have that in there. And, the sellers are protected in a lot of different ways, but it definitely provides more outs in the contract for the buyer.
What should people know about raising kids in Austin?
Yeah. Well, we have like an amazing public school system. So we have a very small private school, kind of an emerging private school scene. And so you definitely can move to Austin and send your kids to public school. And it's not like you have to be in one neighborhood. There's a ton of options. And so that does really appeal to people kind of at all different price points for raising kids. I love raising kids here because I feel like, I was at my son's baseball game last night. Like, we do all the fun mom stuff, right, with our kids, but I can drive 12 minutes and I'm at like a really cool restaurant on the east side, which is like kind of our Brooklyn, right? So I love it because you kind of get the best of both worlds. You have that like suburban lifestyle where you're going to the soccer game and the baseball game and life is easy, like getting around is easy. It's not very big. But if you want to go to a cool concert, or if you want to go to like the hot new restaurant that just opened up, that is there for you as well. So I like that we didn't have to sort of say, well, we want to have this lifestyle without compromising the other.
Yeah. What's the market like right now? I know like during COVID, it was like really super hot. But
yeah, it was crazy.
now,
We had like 20 offers on every property. Our values went up by like 40%. It was nuts. But we've had a stabilization really since interest rates started to go up drastically. Our market has stabilized, and rightfully so. It needed to happen. 2023 was a weird year. We sold a lot of property, but we sold it like first-time home buyers, lower prices, which was great. So first-time home buyers had a lot of power last year. A lot of people jumped into the market that couldn't jump into the market before that, right? Because it's so competitive. So a lot of smart people jumped in, got great deals. 2025 has been interesting. We've been very busy, and it's a little bit of a confusing market for a buyer. So if you're looking in one area, you could have tons of inventory and have tons of choices and be a buyer's market. You go 2 miles away and it's a seller's market because of just based on where, the schools and the desirability. And so it's very hyper focused. It's very micro markets within Austin. And it totally depends on the price point, right? Obviously, if you're buying on the upper end of a neighborhood, you're going to have a ton of choices. If you're buying on the more entry level, you're going to be competing. And so we're seeing multiple offers and we're seeing others sit. I would say the biggest pattern we're seeing is that when it's turnkey and it's priced correctly, it's moving in a week.
Yeah.
What are those price points roughly? And we're talking about 500,000, 600, a million.
Yeah. So it depends, right? I mean, in areas with stronger schools, you're talking, more around, I would say the entry level for those neighborhoods are more like, okay, there are some neighborhoods that you can get in for 700 or 800K with strong schools. They're not going to be huge houses, but they'll be around 2,000 square feet, like really good size, 1,800, 1,900. And you get a single family home, 3-bed. That would, I would say, be the lowest for the really strong school districts. Up to, obviously we've got a super ultra luxury market, to $20 million homes on the lake, right? So very wide variety. I would say the majority of the world that I work in, obviously we have first time home buyers that are buying, and some of those first time home buyers, they want to be closer into downtown and they don't care about schools yet. So they're buying, anywhere from, I would say 500,000 to $1 million, depending on where they are, but they're getting a single family home. They're like 10 minutes from everything, it's a very cool area, but they're getting some space. So I would say that's kind of first time home buyer price point. And then for second time home buyer or people that are more focused on schools, you're talking like there's a lot between $1 million and I would say $4 million in that range. There's a lot of options, a lot of opportunity, even in like the best school district in the state of Texas, which we have. It's Eanes School District. I just had a client close on a property for about $3 million, and they got new construction, 3,500 square feet, pool, beautiful, feeding into an amazing school. So, and they're like 6 minutes from downtown Austin. So there's still a lot of cool opportunities in really strong school districts for about $2 to $4 million.
If money was no problem, where would you live in Austin?
Well, my dream is to buy a place in Northwest Hills that has a view, because it's kind of like there's only a few of those houses that have these like incredible canyon views. So that's probably my dream, because I do really like this neighborhood. Other neighborhoods, if I wasn't so like sort of settled in the community up here, there's a cool neighborhood called Travis Heights, which is in South Austin, which has all these historic homes, like these homes from like 1930. I mean, they're just like amazing historic homes. That area I really, really like as well. And then obviously if there was absolutely no budget, I would buy a house on Lake Austin, because there's some incredible homes there. And if you come to Austin, I would definitely rent if it's during a warmer time, I would rent a boat and go on, like, get someone to drive you on Lake Austin and go and just look at the real estate, because it's pretty incredible. It's sort of like jaw dropping.
What's the overarching message, right? The what you want people to take away who are listening to this about Austin? What's like the one big point?
Yeah, I would say Southern hospitality. People are really friendly, but with some advantages of a big city. Great food, progressive, lots to do. So I think it's got a good mix, and great weather.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Lindsay, thank you so much for chatting with us today. I really appreciate it. Why don't you give us one more time who you are and where people can find you?
Great. Lindsay Neuren in Austin, Texas. You can find me at Lindsay ATX Realtor on Instagram, or you can Google me for my website.
Awesome. Well, I'm Aaron.
I'm Geoff.
And this has been the Relocation Rundown. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.